Welcome, welcome, one and all. So today's fun. Today's a cool one. Today we will be picking up our lesson from where we left off on Tuesday. We'll be discussing pre-production. And today we're just going to continue right on with that. We're going to be doing pre-production part 2. And we'll be discussing coverage today, triangle coverage, and specifically lining of the script. Lining of the script is something that is going to be really useful to you, and it's also a really, really big part of what is required for your pre-production package for the remainder of this semester. So everything that we're discussing this week, and as well as in the lesson that we'll have when we come back from Thanksgiving break, are all of kind of the big things that you have due by the end of the semester. This is basically your final. Like if there was a final, this is basically it for the semester. You've got all these really big pre-production pieces due at the end of the semester. You have your revised screenplay. You have your broken down script, which we talked about in class on Tuesday with the color coding and the script lined into eighths, right? We have what we're talking about today, which is lining of the script. And then we'll have shot lists and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of like planning and organization and just getting ready for actual production that's due in a few weeks when the semester is over. So today we're picking up where we left off with the pre-production process, and we're going to advance into the lining of the script. And I think you'll find that this is kind of fun because this is the part of pre-production where you really start to visualize your film in your head in terms of what's actually happening on the screen. You're really trying to visualize, and you're really getting a lot of the cinematic aspects down on paper so that you can be well prepared before you go out and ever pick up a camera and hit the record button. So that's kind of what we're talking about today, and there is a process to that, and we're going to kind of go through that process and teach you why we do it that way and then how you do it so that you can be super, super prepared when the time comes for you to actually begin shooting your films. All right, so very first today, we're going to watch a video from our dear friend, Mr. Eric Rustum. Good old Eric Rustum, in the goodness of his heart, has prepared a series of senior narrative videos for students. That was also his Zenith project from last year. So Eric is he's going to give us a brief introduction, and then we'll come back to Eric later at the end of our lesson when he's going to teach us how to line scripts. But he's going to impart his deep wells of knowledge onto you. He's going to share his wisdom and learning. And we can all learn a lot from good old Mr. Eric Rustum. So I'm going to turn the time over to him, and he's going to give us his brief introduction about what these videos are, and then we'll hear it again from him later today.
Hello and welcome. My name is Eric Rustum. I'm a senior at Freestyle Academy, or I was. And this is Joe. He helps out around here.
What's up?
Hopefully right now I'm speaking to a group of current freestyle seniors, and I want to say congratulations, you're starting your senior narrative.
Oof.
What?
No, it's nothing. It's nothing. I'm praying for you guys.
Okay, hey guys, wait, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Well, you say that, bro, but then you actually do it.
Okay, I will admit this is a beast of a project. Mr. Taylor's probably hyped this up since junior year. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, of pre-production, production, and post-production that goes into just a 10-minute film. You will shed tears, sweat, and maybe even blood during this process. But hey, it's gonna be just fine. I'm here to teach you some personal tips I learned in my senior narrative, and I'm passing all my knowledge on to you. So if you're nervous or you don't think you could do this, I'm here to tell you, you can. You can do this. I believe in you. I believe that you can do this.
Let's go. Let's do this. Woo! Yeah! Woo!
Yeah, and hopefully you'll be much better prepared after watching these videos for this massive project. The most important things to remember throughout this whole process are that it's okay to be stressed, ask your classmates for help, and get the shot.
But really, the most important thing to remember is to have fun.
Oh yeah, and have fun. Well, that kind of comes with getting the shot. Well, the last rule in anything is always to have fun, bro. Oh, well, I don't think that's...
Yep.
Let's get started with the pre-production phase.
Let's get started with the pre-production phase. All right. So, having now learned how to break down your script, we are now going to transition into lining of the script, which is a whole different process, a whole different thing. That is a little more, in my opinion, a little more time consuming than the stuff that we've done previously where we color coded locations and actors and props and so on and so forth. That was very technical and practical in terms of preparing for your shoot. Lining the script is a little more creative. So if you want to get into cinematography, this is where we're starting to figure out what kind of shots we're going to use to help illustrate and tell our story from a visual perspective. So lining of the script is basically used to plan out your shots. It's, again, hyper organization, because we're going to organize like crazy in this stage, but it's a lot of organization. This is also where we're going to be numbering our shots, and these numbers are going to matter a lot to us in the future as we get further into pre-production, but also as we get onto set in production. And then again, even in post-production, like having all these clearly labeled is really, really important, particularly in the industry if you're working with a lot of different people. Lining of the script is used to make sure that you have full coverage of a scene. So think back to like the films you worked on previous to this. Maybe you worked on a film junior year, and maybe you've had the experience where you've been sitting editing and you're editing away and you're sitting there tearing your hair out, wishing that, oh, if only I had gotten this one shot, I could have cut from here to here, but I don't have that one shot. And so I'm screwed, and now I've got to figure out a way to go from here to here, but I can't go from here to here. That's a jump cut, or that looks bad, or this shot is too long, or if only I had that one shot, right? Yeah, I see a lot of nodding heads, so I see that some of you have had this experience before. We all have. Everyone has. Every filmmaker has. So the idea of lining the script is to help make it so that that doesn't happen to you in post-production. The idea of lining your script is to help you get full coverage. This term full coverage, meaning we've got full coverage of a scene, which means a lot of different angles and a lot of different options for you when you do get into the editing room. So that if something goes wrong or you can't figure out where to cut to next, you've got a lot of different choices. And so you won't have that awful experience of, I wish, if only. It's sometimes used, the idea of lining a script is sometimes used as a tool on set during production. Sometimes it's somebody's job on set to, as they take a shot, they'll line the script as it's happening to kind of create a history of what shots they've gotten. And that way they can easily look at their script and say, oh yeah, we've got full coverage. We've got all the angles that we need. We're okay to move on. And that's certainly something that you can do when you're on set as a production tool. We're going to be using lining the script as a pre-production tool because I think it can be done in that way. But I also find it personally, I find it really helpful. Because it helps us plan more and prepare more for production. And since we are not here at Freestyle, since we're not working on really big, giant productions with hundreds of people, you as the director you and your partner are taking on a lot of responsibilities. You're wearing a lot of different hats, where if you were working on a big studio Hollywood film, you would have a lot of different people to do a lot of different jobs. Since we are only working with just a handful of people on your films, you don't really have time to be worrying about yet another thing on production. Like, I don't want you trying to focus on lining your script during production when you've also got to work on directing and camera and cinematography and helping your actors and making sure all the props are there and staying on schedule, and is the sun going down, and so on and so forth. There's just too many things to worry about since you're taking on so many responsibilities and so many different roles in the film industry. So we're going to use lining the script as a pre-production tool, which I prefer personally because it helps me visualize my screenplay more clearly, and it helps me sort of develop and really craft my film language and my cinematography to a richer extent than I think if I wasn't doing it in this way. So yes, as I said, a focus on cinematography and visual storytelling. This is fun this is the fun part of pre-production, because this is really the creative part. If you don't like the organization part, that's cool. I get it. I understand. I can relate to that. This part of pre-production, however, is a lot more creative, because this is really the part where you're visualizing the cinematography of your film, the figuring out of how your camera is going to be capturing what it is that you're capturing, what the angles are going to be, what the size of the frame is going to be, how you're going to frame it, is there going to be camera movement, so on and so forth. So it's really visualizing your film in your head before, and then getting it down on paper before you ever pick up a camera and hit record. In that sense, it's kind of like a storyboard, except this is a more sort of note-taken form. It's kind of a shorthand version of your storyboard. Without drawing every frame out, we're just going to use annotations to kind of visualize it, so we can look at it and see it in our head, so to speak. All right, but first, to understand how to line a script, we actually need to understand how shots are numbered when we're shooting a scene in production. So in order to really understand how to do this right, we need to have a basic level understanding of how scenes are numbered and how scenes are shot and captured in production. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit to make sure that you have that foundation, so that you understand how this applies and how we can prepare for this by using a lined script. So we're going to go over very briefly how scenes and how shots are numbered in production. And to do that, we're going to watch a video from our friends over at Film Riot. This is kind of fun. They're going to do a little skit for us, and then they're going to break down that skit and show us how the shots are numbered. And once we have a basic understanding of how they get their coverage for any given scene, we can then apply that foundation to your scripts and start numbering your shots and moving forward in such a way that you can prepare for the kind of scenes that you're going to be putting together. So without further ado, here is our Film Riot episode for the day.
Today's episode of Film Riot Mondays is brought to you by Squarespace. On today's Film Riot Mondays, we talk about coverage. More fun than a Cinnabon.
Hey, champ.
Come to make fun of me?
Nah, not this time.
Thanks. Oh, God.
What is alcohol?
It's a rubbing alcohol.
What's the difference?
There's a big difference. Besides, I don't drink.
For someone who doesn't drink, you should have lodged that down your gullet pretty quickly.
Please go away forever.
Can't. Got you something, buckaroo.
What's the point? Nothing will bring Harry Potter back. The last film came and went. Now I have nothing to look forward to.
Oh, I think you do. See, Josh? Harry Potter isn't over. You are Harry Potter.
Me?
Yes. You have the wizard's touch, Harry. You can do anything with your new powers. Even stop speeding cars in their tracks.
I'm a wizard.
You better believe it.
I'm a wizard.
Now you get out there and put your power to work.
I will. I'm a wizard.
That was actually pretty nice of you, Emily.
Huh? Oh, no. I'm just hoping he gets hit by a car so I can put it on YouTube.
Kids. Logo. Welcome to Film Riot Mondays, the little brother to Film Riot. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, what? Where are the Harry Potter effects that we were promised? Not today, my friends. We'll be getting to those on Thursday's episode. Today, we'll be answering this fine gentleman's email. Dear Film Riot guys, I wanted to know how you shoot your sketches with all the angles. Do you have multiple cameras? Also, could you explain the difference between a sequence, a shot, and a scene? I hear people talking about all three as if they're different. Thanks and keep rocking. Hayden. Oh, you're right, I'll keep rocking.
Yeah, it's time to burn rubber with rock and roll racing.
I eat rock and roll for breakfast.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
So back off, wimps.
Now, before we get into the coverage I use for the opening scene, let's clear up the whole shot, scene, sequence thing. And it goes in that order, actually. First is the shot, which is one of many angles you'll use to shoot your scene. A scene is one location of a sequence, and a sequence is a larger connecting portion of your film that will usually have multiple scenes. For example, say you have a heist film. At some point in the film, you're going to have the bank robbery sequence. And during this sequence, there'll be a scene outside the bank, then inside where they take control of the bank, then another scene in the vault, and then finally their getaway chase scene. And each of these scenes will have multiple shots, meaning different camera angles. I think that clears it up, so with that out of the way, let's get into coverage. Imagine the scene we just showed you playing out in one shot. Would be boring, feel too long, and would keep us detached from the characters since we're not getting close enough to feel like we're inside the action. Plus, you don't have control over the pacing, which is very important with comedy or when working with children. So if your dialogue plays a bit slower in real life, that could make the scene feel like it drags and kills a lot of the comedy, which is why we add more coverage like the singles of each character. Now we have 3 shots to cut around to tell our story and build the tone and pacing the story needs. Now I can have the actors' dialogue overlap each other or cut each other off and make it seem like it's moving much faster, or slow down the moment to really push the comedy. This basic setup of the master shot and 2 singles is called triangle coverage. It's the simplest way to shoot a scene and a great foundation to build around to create an even better visual story. But we aren't done just yet. The scene has 2 objects that we need to call attention to, so we need to have extra coverage just for these objects. Shots like this that aren't the main action but are things that help for cutting together later are called inserts. Inserts are different angles of things that are already covered in the master shot but aren't the main subject, such as the actors. These shots are very important though. Without them, the entire wand section of that scene would have just been weird and would have felt as though something was missing. Finally, we have the cutaway. A cutaway is a shot not covered in the master shot. Say an actor looking off screen and we cut to the clock that they're looking at, that would be a cutaway. In this scene, I guess you could say that the shot of me was our cutaway, although it's a shot of an actor, so it technically wouldn't be a cutaway. Either way, that's coverage. Pretty simple and extremely effective, and once you master it, you can mold it to fit whatever feeling you want to convey. And sometimes it's even the lack of coverage that'll make a scene great. You could use M. Night's earlier films or Hitchcock's film like Rope as an example there. Sometimes it's much more effective to just hold a shot to create suspense or drama. Like TNT, they know drama.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. But with that section nicely wrapped up like a present hiding a naked cowboy, we'll get to the last part of the question, and that is whether or not we use multiple cameras. The answer to this is no. We have actually never used more than 1 camera on Film Riot, and even my short film Tell was shot completely with the 1 camera setup. I personally like working this way, although there are times I think the comedy would definitely flow better if we had 2 cameras. But the way we do this is by shooting one side of the scene all the way through, having Josh finish all his dialogue for the scene, and then jumping to the next angle to then have Emily do all her dialogue. Then later you'll bring your footage into your editor and cut it all together. Now I have been asked that question a lot over the course of the show, and what they ask along with that typically is if they should shoot a little bit of the dialogue, then switch to the other angle and shoot a little bit of it, pretty much shooting it in real time, cutting back and forth between the 2 actors, and that actually wouldn't make much sense. It would make production take a lot longer since you'll be moving lighting and gear more than is needed. Just shoot everything from one angle, then cut to the other angle and shoot everything you need. That's the best way to do it. But there you have it. That is the basics of coverage. Next Monday, we're gonna go into it a bit further and talk about the specific shots used and how choosing them will affect your scene.
We're gonna go over it together with a little bit more detail, so that you'll kind of have a better understanding of how this works. But this all comes down to getting coverage. So this is for a standard shooting dialogue scene. You have a master shot, okay? And this is a wide shot. This is kind of establishes the geography, okay? This is basically Griffith's pattern. If you guys think back to when you were juniors and we talked about Griffith's pattern, and if you need to review that material, I've uploaded that lesson recently to my YouTube channel, okay? All right, so you get your Griffith's pattern that establishes the scene. You get the long shot that shows all the characters in the room and everything. The master shot is the duration of your whole scene from that wide shot. It shows everything that's happening on. Okay, this is your safety net. If everything goes horribly wrong, at least you got this master shot that shows everything, right? Okay, so this is your foundation. This is what you build upon, that master shot. Then you have your singles. Okay, singles are the individual shots and close-ups for your principal actors. Okay, so if, for example, me and Optimus Prime are having a conversation, right? Okay, so here's me and Optimus, and we're having a talk. So this would be our master shot, right? Well, we're just both having a conversation. Hello, Mr. Taylor. Hello, Optimus Prime, right? Okay, we're gonna have our whole conversation here, right? Now the singles would be, for example, like if you're gonna do my single of Optimus Prime, like it might be one of those over the shoulder shots where like you don't really see me very much, but you see Optimus Prime. Hello, Mr. Taylor. Transform and roll out. I can't, Optimus Prime. I'm not a transformer. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. Thanks, Optimus Prime. I think I will. All right. So this would be his single, right? Like here he is. Like this is his shot. This is his single. And once we get all of his singles done, his lines finished for the whole scene, then we're going to switch. And then we're going to shoot my singles. And then we'll put Optimus Prime over here, so we're looking over his shoulder. I'll be like, but Mr. Optimus Prime, I am a human. I do not have the ability to transform. You must believe in, right? All that kind of stuff, right? And that would be my single, okay? So you have the master shot that includes everything, and then each actor in a dialogue scene gets their own shot. And then that is their single, all right? And it's not just the parts where they're thank you, Optimus Prime. You can go back now. I was just looking for an excuse to play with my toys. It's true. The master shot, right, includes everything. The singles are kind of the meat of everything, but it's not just when you're delivering lines, okay? Like the reactions are just as important, if not more so important, right? And think about Griffith's pattern. We talked about this with Griffith's pattern. If you think way back to Griffith's pattern, you remember how much I stressed, you got to get those close-ups. You got to get those close-ups. Why do we need those close-ups? Because that's how we build character emotion, right? Remember that? That's how we build emotion. That's how people identify with the characters. So these singles become really, really important, not just when a character is delivering a line of dialogue, but when a character is reacting to a line of dialogue. Okay? If I have a scene going on with Akshur and Nikki, right? And Nikki gives a line of dialogue, and it's a really important line of dialogue, I need to see how Akshur is going to react to it, especially, even more so, if Akshur is my protagonist. Like if Akshur is my main character, his reaction's even more important, right? I've got to see his reaction because that's where the emotion is. That's where the feeling is. That's how my audience will connect to Akshur, who in this case is my main character, my protagonist. All right. This is the same thing that we talked about with Hitchcock. Remember Hitchcock, who looks at the baby and then we see the baby and then it cuts back to Hitchcock and he smiles. Remember, we get the reaction of that. We understand who he is as a character. So these singles are really important, not just for lines of dialogue, but also for the reaction that characters give to other people's lines of dialogue. Okay. Equally as important. All right, then you've got your inserts, and as they explained in the video, the inserts are shots that are kind of add to the piece. It's not about the actors, but it's about like the little things that we need close-ups of. So if you think back to when you were juniors and you think about those lessons that we talked about with show, don't tell, and with Hitchcock, you remember Hitchcock had that scene with the key. You remember that scene that we watched where the wife was like trying to steal the key from her husband and then hand it over to Cary Grant at that big party with the wine bottles? Remember that? Right? Hitchcock gave us a close-up of that key because it was important, right? It was important. So we got the close-up of the key in the woman's hand. We got the close-up of the key as the woman handed it secretly to Cary Grant, right? That's all our big push on that lesson was show, don't tell, right? Show the audience what's important, right? Don't rely on the master shot for us to see this tiny little key. I'd never see that. If Evan, who's right next to me on my screen, if I was handing, oh, he moved. If I'm going to hand Evan my key, Evan, if you reach out, it's going to look like, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. It's like I'm handing you my key, right? If we did that in a master shot, he wouldn't he wouldn't see that. Like the audience wouldn't see that. We need the close up because it's important, right? So that's what inserts are, okay? These are objects or things or other little things that add to the scene that maybe aren't the singles because they're not of the actors, but they're important to the scene. In the Harry Potter skit that we saw, it was the wand being passed over. It was the opening of the package. It was the glass of rubbing alcohol that was being slid across the table, right? Those are inserts that added to the complexity of the scene and added some richness to it, okay? And then you've got the cutaways, all right? And the cutaways are shots that are not part of the master shot. So if I'm handing Evan my key, we can see that in the master shot, but we want an insert of that to highlight it. A cutaway would be like if me and Evan are talking and then we hear the door chime or the bell chime, we hear the ding dong chime of the clock, and we both look over and then we show the clock because the clock was not part of the master shot. So we cut away and show the clock. So it's like an insert, but it's different because it was never part of the master shot. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Yeah? Good? Okay. All right. So we need that basic level of understanding so that we can do what we're going to do next by lining the script, okay? These are the words and the terminology that you should be really comfortable and familiar with on set and in the industry, because this is what people will refer to them as, okay? So you need to understand this language because this is how people will refer to them. And since film is so very collaborative, you're going to be working with a lot of other people in the future. You want to make sure you're using the correct terminology so that when you say, oh, I need Max's single, everyone on set understands exactly what I'm talking about, and we're not wasting time with somebody who doesn't understand what it means to capture a single of a principal actor, okay? All right, we call this triangle coverage because it's 3 shots, the master shots and 2 singles, okay? This is the foundation. This is the basic level of coverage for any dialogue scene with 2 characters, okay? Very, very basic, very, very effective, okay? A master shot and 2 singles with inserts and cutaways added in as needed to add some richness and complexity to the scene. This is it. You can shoot every scene in this way, and it will be done very professionally. Pay attention. Your homework assignment today is to turn on the television and find a dialogue scene and pay attention, and you'll notice, oh, this is just triangle coverage. Almost every television show, because they're trying to do it quickly, almost every television show, when there's a dialogue scene, it's just triangle coverage the whole way through. It's not hard. It's not hard. If you understand this, you can make your work look very, very professional, because it's really just capturing the master shots and 2 singles on the rule of thirds, just like you did with your interviews, only you're doing it with dialogue scenes instead. Okay? Really, really basic, all right? And then you just add your inserts and your cutaways to kind of make it more rich and more exciting. Now, don't forget, because you're so focused on triangle coverage, don't forget about all the things we've learned previous to this point. Do not forget about your Griffiths pattern. Do not forget about establishing a new scene. Do not forget about showing and telling and showing things that are important. Those inserts are really, really important, all right? If every single one of your scenes was nothing but a master shot and 2 singles, that's going to get really boring really fast. It's going to feel very static, and we're going to cut from one scene to the next, and it's going to feel like a jump cut in a way, right? You need some stuff in between to transition from scene to scene. You need a new establishing shot. You need, some new long shots and some new B-roll, right? To kind of help us feel the flavor of this new scene before we get into it, right? And then as we get into the scene, you want to make sure you include a bunch of inserts and cutaways, again, to add richness to it. So don't be so focused on getting your triangle coverage that you forget about all the other film language that we've learned up until this point. If you do it right, continuity will be a breeze. You won't have any problems with your continuity if you do it right. And if your actors are good. If your actors are good, they'll deliver the lines in the same way with the same hand motions every single time. And when you get in the editing room, it becomes really easy to put together an edit between those 2 singles and that master shot. And you won't have a problem with continuity. This is also why it's important that your actors are well prepared. If your actors aren't well prepared, it's going to make more work for you in editing because they're not doing it the same way on a consistent basis, or they're forgetting lines, and then you're gonna have to edit out every time they ask for a line. What's my line again? Oh, that's right. Next line. What's the next line? Okay. You know, like you have to edit all that out over and over again. That's going to get really, really frustrating. So you don't want to have to do that. You want to have actors that are well prepared. But if you do it right, this really expedites the process, which is why the film industry does it this way, because it's the fastest way of getting through it all. Okay. Your screen direction becomes critically important. Critically important. All right. Your 180-degree rule becomes critically important when you're doing triangle coverage. Because if you break the 180-degree rule, your triangle coverage falls apart. Okay, so if you think back to junior year, think back to last year when we talked about the 180-degree rule and our lessons on continuity and screen direction right before you guys did your chase scenes. Okay, all right, think back to that time. If you need to review that material, I've just very recently posted it online on the YouTube channel for students to review and to watch. Okay, triangle coverage is built around the concept of the 180-degree rule. Okay, it's critical that you follow the 180-degree rule if you're going to have adequate screen direction and if it's going to work with your triangle coverage. Because remember, the audience just has this little window to work with, this little 16:9 window to work with. And if I'm talking to a cond, right, and I'm on the right-hand side of my screen and a cond's on the left-hand side of his screen, right, we're both on different sides, right, and all of a sudden you flip it, you do a 180 and you flip it, the audience is going to be super confused. And that's going to matter a lot, particularly in a dialogue scene, particularly when you're making your foundation triangle coverage. So make sure that you follow the 180-degree rule. And if you think you need a little review on that, I really, really encourage you to go back and watch my lesson on it or look at my slides and make sure that you look at the material so that you're familiar with that, because that's not a mistake you want to make, because that can have disastrous consequences for you when you get to post-production. Okay. All of these shots are numbered, and they are numbered as thus. Your master shot takes the number of the scene. Okay, so if this is scene 1, your master shot is shot 1. Sometimes they'll use the letter A with it. It doesn't really matter. You can do it either way. You just need to be consistent. So your master shot can be shot number 1, or it can be shot number 1A. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. You don't want to get to scene 5 and all of a sudden you're no longer using A for your master shots, or all of a sudden you start using A for your master shots. And the reason why it's really important to be consistent is because in the industry, usually the editor is not on set, right? The editor's waiting for all the stuff to be captured. So if you start changing your numbering conventions halfway through the film, your editor's going to go nuts in post because they're going to think they're missing shots. But where is it? I don't understand. Like, where's shot number 7? Where's shot number 8? Where's shot number 9? All these master shots are missing. Well, no, they're not missing. You just started using A for your master shots halfway through your film. And now your editor's tearing their hair out, panicking, afraid that they've lost shots when in fact they haven't. All right. So be very consistent. It doesn't matter which method you use, just be consistent. So you have your master shot. After you number your master shot, then you're going to number your single shot for your first actor. So this will be 1A or 1B if you're starting with 1A on your master shot. Okay. Then you do your single for your next actor. Okay. Then you're going to do any inserts that you have. Then you're going to label any cutaway shots that you have. Okay. And you go so on and so forth all the way through the alphabet. If you go have some scene that has so many shots that you go all the way through the alphabet, you just start adding additional letters after that. So you go from 1Z to 1AA and then to 1AB and so on and so forth. Okay? And this is how you label these shots. And these shots are what's going to appear on your slate when you start slating your work with that clapper deal. Okay? So all of this has a connection to your production, and all of this has a connection to your post-production. In the industry, it's some intern's job to label all these shots with 1A, 1B, 1C. So when the editors actually start editing, all that footage has been logged. And if they're looking for shot 1A, 1B, 1C, they just look for it because that's the name of the clip itself. And they can find it, and it becomes really, really easy. Again, it's this very hyper level of organization. Extreme organization. And again, the reason why they do it this way is because there's so many people involved. There's so many people involved on a big budget film project. If it's you and your partner, this level of organization is not going to be quite as critical because you and your partner just need to know where everything is. You and your partner just need to remember which shot is which. Okay, but on a big budget production, when there's like a huge 2-hour movie's worth of shots and you're working with hundreds of other people, you have to be hyper organized. Because if you're not, that's going to waste time, and time is money. And paying one person an hourly rate is not a huge deal, but paying hundreds of people an hour dollar rate, right? That's a huge deal. That's a lot of money that you're throwing away if you're not organized, and you're wasting time trying to figure out proper communication that could have just been there if it was organized correctly. All right. So coming back now to pre-production, all right? These shot numbers are what we're going to use when we're planning our shots as we line the script. Okay, these are the shot numbers that we're thinking about. This triangle coverage is what we're using when we're building our scenes and when we're planning out our shots by lining the script. All right, he's going to show us how then to start lining the script. He's going to show us the very basics of that, and then I'm going to show you some examples, and then we're going to finish up with Mr. Eric Rustum, who really explains it well. And we're going to learn how it's done, and then you can kind of start applying it to your own screenplay. If you have your printed out screenplay with you by chance, if you still have that with you, now would be a good time to pull it out. You don't have to start making lines on it right away, but it might be helpful to have it in front of you, so you can kind of follow along and figure out where your lines might go when you start lining your own script.
Logo. Now that the storyboard's done, it's time to create a shot list, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of all the shots you just created on the storyboard, except now you're going to give them all names. So if you've ever seen a camera slate, you'll notice that they'll start with something like 1A, take 1. That 1A is actually the name of the shot, which means scene 1, shot A. So each shot is going to be named starting with a number and then a letter following that. The number represents the scene that you're shooting and the letter the shot. So it's going to be scene 1A, 1B, 1C, and so on. If you go past 1Z, then you're going to go to shot 1AA, 1AB, 1AC, and you get the point. Now that we have our storyboard and shot list complete, we're going to line the script. This is going to become the blueprint for what span of time each shot will cover. For instance, if you had one shot that you only wanted to cover 2 lines of dialogue, you could visually plot that when you line the script. Let's take a look. So here I have the script from one of our sketches. The first thing I'm going to do is come to the top and signify which shot this line will represent. And this is placed where the shot begins, 1A. Now create a straight line through your script into the point that you want the shot to end and add a line. If the shot continues to the next page, use an arrow.
Okay, so that's basically how you start lining shots on a script. Very, very simple, not too hard. You just line it like that, and then you label what that shot is and how that works. So when you start having a finished script, you'll kind of start to see what that looks like. So lining the script, again, is used to really plan your shots. This is the creative part of your pre-production. You're thinking creatively about your visual film language. You're thinking about your cinematography. So don't be lazy on this process. It'd be really easy just to do your triangle coverage and call it good. But you're better than that, right? You're filmmakers now. Like, think about like how you want to visually like support the story that's being told by using camera movement when possible, right? Or when appropriate, right? By changing your shots, okay? The triangle coverage is a great foundation. It's a great like starting point. It's a great building block. And that might be good for a lot of scenes without adding anything else. But there might be other moments where you need something else. Maybe you want that cool Zolly shot when the character realizes something, right? Or maybe you want that 360 shot when they step out onto the big city, right? That is like, and then it pans out and reveals the city behind them, right? So lining your script becomes an opportunity for you to really visualize your movie and really figure out kind of what you want to do with it in terms of your cinematography. It's a lot like your storyboard, as I mentioned earlier. It's a lot like your storyboard. You're just doing it shorthand. You're just doing it with notes instead of with pictures. Okay? So we're going to make sure everything's organized. We're going to number all those shots, and it's going to really help us make sure that we have full coverage of a scene and that we're really developing that cinematography. All right. Good old Eric Rustum is going to walk us through the last part of lining a script so that we understand how this is done, because there's a couple other little secrets that you're going to want to know, particularly when identifying singles of different characters and what to do to kind of mark that and notate that on your screenplay. All right, Mr. Eric Rustum, teach us thy ways.
Hello and welcome to the pre-production phase. My name is Eric Russom, and today we are going to talk a lot today about some important things to remember before you even pick up the camera to start filming. The first thing we're going to talk about today is lining the script. Lining the script is what you do when you plan out every single shot in your film. Every line that you make on a script indicates a particular shot and how long it'll last. We're going to look at my senior narrative line script as an example. Here we have scene 2, which takes place at a school. Two characters, Chad and Matt, have a conversation by the vending machine about a girl who's sitting close by.
Chad.
First, I line my master shot, which is labeled 2A, to start our shot sequence. This is a wide shot that goes through the entire scene.
Yo, Matt. What do you think of that girl over there?
What girl, dude?
You know, the girl over on the bench. I don't really know her name, but she seems cool or whatever.
Next, I'll line my singles. Since I'm planning on shooting them after my master shot, they are labeled sequentially with 2B and 2C. These are going to be close-up shots of each of the two characters. Typically, the lines start with the dialogue and end when the characters are done talking. The squiggles in the middle are for when a character isn't talking. Squiggle moments are also important for reaction shots during the scene. In this example, 2B is Chad's single and 2C is Matt's.
Well, just go up and talk to her.
I don't know.
Dude, you can get with any girl. Hell, the hottest girl in school likes you, and we're not doing anything about it.
With these 3 shots, we have obtained triangle coverage. One master shot and 2 singles is the simplest form of coverage in a dialogue scene. It gets more complicated depending on your scene, but it's all expanded from triangle coverage. For example, insert shots are a way of expanding beyond just seeing the characters talking. Insert shots help immerse us in the film and can emphasize certain objects in a scene. So, our insert shot is going to be labeled 2D. These are the shortest lines on our scripts because these shots take very little time to take.
I don't really know her name, but she seems cool or whatever.
Well, just go up and talk to her.
I don't know.
Dude, you can get with any girl. Hell, the hottest girl in school likes you, and we're not doing anything about it.
I don't know, Tiffany's hot and all, but just don't really have anything in common.
Now you may have a lot of questions right now. Eric, what's the point of getting all these shots if I'm not even going to use some of them in the edit? Yeah, dude, that was like a lot of work. You didn't even have to do anything. But I'm on my 5th orange. Yes, this method of single cam shooting can take a lot of time, but you want to make sure you have all the options you can in case something goes wrong. And also, generally, it's just a good idea to have all the options you can in the editing room. If production time is a worry for you, then putting a lot of effort into stuff like your line script and your shot list will really help save time on set. I know it definitely helped our senior narrative. Preparation can make or break a film. Often when watching a film, you can tell how much effort was put into its pre-production. So going forward, here's some general tips to keep in mind before you start filming. Storyboarding can be a great tool during production. It allows you to see the shot you envision and exactly what needs to be in the frame, as well as how the camera should move. If a shot on your line script or your shot list isn't clear enough, you should refer to your storyboard to clarify. When you are scheduling your shoot days, list out everything you will need for those days. Whether it's wardrobe choices for your actors, camera equipment, lights, mics, props, food, extra batteries, whatever you need, list it out. Being completely prepared for a shoot will make it go much smoother, and it will encourage your actors to be just as professional. When you are contacting people, whether they are crew members, actors, or your producer, be very formal. Even if the people who are helping you are your best friends, maintain a professional tone. These people are volunteering time for your film, so you should treat them with the utmost respect. Plus, being professional encourages those people to work with you and stick with your film. Here's a Joe tip. Schedule times that are a little bit over the amount of time you think you will shoot. That way, if you finish early, your actors will appreciate that you worked hard to let them go home. Pre-production was the hardest part of my senior narrative, but hopefully it'll go much smoother for you thanks to these tips. It's gonna suck either way. In a good way. Hopefully. Thanks, and we'll see you in the production phase.
I rely on Eric Rustum here because he's a champ, and he's doing it right. Doing it right. Okay, so when you have a finished lined screenplay, it might look something like this. So you can see here is what looks like the master shot. I know it's the master shot because it's labeled 24A. And it's got wide shot here, WS, wide shot. So that implies that this is the master shot. It also appears to cover the whole duration of this scene. And it seems to cover everything because there are no squiggly lines. Okay. This shot here is 24B CU, which stands for close up. Okay. So 24B is a close up. This implies that it's probably a single. Let's take a look here. Let's see. The straight line goes through Martin's dialogue, and it squiggles through Mitchell's dialogue. So that means that this is Martin's single, because the squiggle line means I'm not actually shooting Mitchell right here. I don't care about Mitchell. The straight line's where the action is. That's how I know this one's a master shot. There are no squiggles, right? This one's got squiggle lines through Mitchell. So Mitchell's not really important. Maybe I'm even doing this without Mitchell. I might not even need Mitchell, depending on how I'm framing this particular shot. Okay, but that's 24B. This is Martin's single. Here's 24C-CU. So CU, again, is a close-up, okay? And this time the straight line goes through Mitchell's dialogue and squiggles through Martin's dialogue. So this must be Mitchell's single. Now we've got this shot over here. What do you think this is? 24D-MCU. It's not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What is it?
Micro close-up.
No.
Medium close-up?
Yes, it's a medium close-up. And what is it a medium close-up of?
Both of them?
Both of them. There's no squiggles. It's on both of both of them. There's straight lines through both of their dialogue, implying that they are both in this shot. This is a two-shot. This is a two-shot. This is a medium close-up of them both. And it starts at here and it ends here. Okay? Here's a little insert over here, 24E. Mitchell looks irritated. So I'm going to get an insert shot of just Mitchell looking irritated. Okay, and that's what that particular shot is. Okay, so you're going to number all of those, and you're going to do it for each and every scene. And you want to make sure that you include reaction shots. So even like this single here of Mitchell, even though I'm squiggling through Martin's dialogue, I'm still recording Mitchell's reaction to Martin saying this line. Okay, because that's really important. Those reaction shots where someone's excited or confused or scared or falling in love or terrified, whatever it may be, those emotions, right? We talked about that during Griffith's pattern, right? Those close-ups show emotion. You still need those even when people aren't delivering their lines. Sometimes you need to watch somebody else while somebody else is delivering their lines. Sometimes I need to see Eileen's face while Sarah delivers her line saying, "You're the worst person ever and you stole my job and I despise you." I need to see Eileen's face as she takes that in, right? It's almost more important to see Eileen's reaction to that than it is to see Sarah deliver the lines, particularly if Eileen's the main character, right? If she's the protagonist that I'm trying to follow, that becomes even more important. So how you plan out your shots is really, really important, but this basic triangle coverage can really make this work effectively. The singles oftentimes stretch the course of the entire scene as well. Okay, this is why it's important for your actors to be prepared, to know their lines, to have rehearsed a little bit. Otherwise, they can't be looking at their script every other line. That's not going to work, right? They need to know it because you want to film it all in one shot. And if you can film it all in one shot, then you're in business and you get through your scenes way faster. But if they have to look at their script every single line or have to be fed lines every single time, that can, imagine how much cutting you're going to have to do in editing now to cut out that stuff. What's my line? Okay, right. What's my line? Okay, yeah, right? You have to cut out so much garbage if they're unprepared. So that becomes really important for your actors. And that's important for you as the director to make sure that you're reiterating that point to them. And this helps you visually map coverage. What's cool about this is I can look at this, so you guys can see my mouse. I can look at any point of this screenplay and kind of make sure that I have all my coverage just by looking at the lines. So if I'm down here at the bottom, for example, I can move my mouse horizontally across the page and say, oh, look at this. I have 3 points of coverage for this line of dialogue. Look at this. I have 4 points of coverage for this moment where he looks irritated. I have 4 options to choose in the editing room. Look at this. I've got 4 cameras running for this line. I've got 3 cameras running for these lines. So it's kind of like the legs of a tripod. I have a lot of options that allow me to cut back and forth and back and forth and back and forth when I do get into post-production. Okay? Now, if I was looking at this screenplay, if this was one of your screenplays, I would look at the top here and I would be a little alarmed at this right here. Look at this. There's, for all this action, all this screen direction right here, all this action, there's only one camera catching all of that. There's only one shot that catches all of that. That would make me nervous. That would make me nervous. Okay, because look at all the stuff that's happening in this action. Martin returns home. He walks up to the step of the house. His father's sitting on the porch smoking and having a drink. Martin has a smile on his face as he walks up to the house. There's a lot of shots that should be in there. Don't you think? I should have a shot of Martin walking. I should have the establishing shot. I should have a shot of Martin walking up to the house. I should have a shot of maybe his point of view, seeing his dad on the chair out front, having a smoke, right? I should see Martin smile, right? Martin smiling is a different shot, right? Like there's no way you could do this whole section effectively all in one master shot and still have the audience see it all effectively. There should be a lot of little shots around this action that would give us more coverage. So only having one line for this, one line of coverage. Here's my line on the master. Oh, if I move it horizontally here, there's only one line here. That's not good. That would alarm me. If this was your screenplay, I would say fix it, go back and revise it, draw some more camera lines in there and come back to me, and then I'll give you a green light. Okay. Okay. Having all these lines of coverage really makes a nice safety net. If this shot goes horribly, horribly wrong for something, maybe it goes out of focus because I was using autofocus and I forgot to look at it or something. This shot goes horribly, horribly wrong. Well, guess what? I still have this one, I still have this one, and I still have this one. Right? So it's a nice safety net that I can always fall back on. There's always another shot that I can go to if one of the lines got messed up, if someone didn't deliver the line in the perfect way, right? I have a lot of different options that I can pull from. So it's going to turn a scene into a good scene no matter what, because I've got full coverage, a lot of different options. When you're done with a script breakdown and lining of a script, you might have a really messy looking screenplay that looks like this, with all the different color coding, with different notes to yourself, with the lines and the camera shots and all this kind of stuff. You might have special notes about stunt requirements and things like that. It's going to get messy. This is one of the reasons why we really like using the screenplay format, because it leaves us a lot of space and a lot of margins for us to write notes and to draw and to do these linings and breakdowns of script. So your screenplay is going to get messy. It's going to get messy, but you're going to be able to read it. You're going to be able to look at it and understand what everything is. And if you were to give this to another filmmaker, a cinematographer, for example, a camera operator, for example, anyone else who has this understanding of what the language is, they would then be able to visualize in their head your movie, which is going to be super important when you get onto set and you need that cinematographer or that camera operator to capture the film in the way that you visualized it. So it's a way of communicating effectively to the other people that you are collaborating with. All right. If you do it right, you get full coverage, and that means you don't have to go back and do reshoots. How many of you had to shoot again to do reshoots? How many of you had to reshoot things for your films last year? I made a lot of you reshoot things for your films last year. Go do these dailies again. These dailies were garbage. Go do that again. Or you need this, or you need that, or you're missing some part of story element for this scene in order to make it effective. If you do your triangle coverage right, that's really going to minimize that. Hopefully you won't have to do a lot of reshoots because you have all these different options to choose from. And you're not going to be in the editing room tearing your hair out, saying to yourself, if only I had that one shot, if I just thought about it and gotten that one shot, okay? So this triangle coverage can really save you in that regards. It's gonna help you save time on a shoot. And if you save time on a shoot, then you have more opportunity on set to kind of be creative and to try new things on a whim. So if you're someone who likes to fly by the seat of your pants, right? You get out onto set, you get your triangle coverage first. That's your safety net. And then because you had a plan and you followed it and you did it super quick, now you have an extra hour. And now, because you have an extra hour and you have a safety net, so it doesn't matter what you do, now you can try that crazy camera idea that you thought, I don't know if this is going to work, but I kind of want to try it. What if we did this? What if we did that? And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. And if it works, that's awesome. That's amazing. You had time to shoot it. And if it doesn't work, who cares? You got your safety net. You got your safety net and you don't have to worry about it. So this can actually, being this level of preparedness and planning ahead of time, can actually create opportunities for you to be creative, to find opportunities and ways to do cool things on set that maybe you could not anticipate because you weren't on set when you were planning and preparing your shots ahead of time. You might get on set and realize, oh, this location's a little bit different than I thought. I could actually do this, 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 and this. Okay, but don't throw away your triangle coverage. Don't throw away your plan. That's your safety net. That's covering your butt. All right, do that stuff first, and you'll have time to play around with some of the other ideas that you're coming up with while you're there. Okay? All right. If we were in class, we would take this opportunity. I would give you 3 pages of a little screenplay that I wrote, and you would have, after having broken down that script, you would line this script with some partners and create sort of a template for how you would go about shooting my little screenplay. We're not in class, obviously, so I'm going to reserve that for another time. Your responsibility is you are going to have to start breaking down and lining and planning your script, your narrative script. So I would suggest that you and your partner get together, Zoom or in person, if you can do it in person. It just depends on, you know, where you're at and what things are going on. And start planning and mapping out your shots and writing them down, 1A, 1B, 1C, making sure you understand which one's the master. Is it a wide shot? Which one's a single? Is it a close-up? Is it a medium close-up? Is it a medium shot? Is it a 2-shot? Where are your inserts? Are you going to do some camera movement? Is this a pan? Is this a tilt? Is this a cool 360 shot? What is it that you're going to do to help support your story? My suggestion would be to start this process. You don't need to wait, but I wouldn't do all of it just yet, because I do have, when we come back from Thanksgiving break, we're going to have our 3rd and final pre-production lesson, in which we're going to get into shot lists and kind of how that goes, how that is done, as well as transitioning into scheduling. And then following that lesson, you get my favorite lesson, my all-time favorite lesson, one that's very near and dear to my heart, my lesson on film mode, secret messages in film, that's very, very focused on cinematic conventions, advanced cinematography techniques. And we're going to be going over a lot of that, which may influence how you choose to line your script. So my suggestion would be is for the next week or so, next week and a half, get with your partner and line out some of your basic scenes with triangle coverage and get familiar and comfortable with that. Make sure your script breakdown is all finished up. Make sure you've got your script lined in 8s and all that, everything. And then once you have that as kind of a basis, kind of a foundation to build upon, we'll have my advanced cinematography lesson, and that might change some of your thinking afterwards, and that might inspire you to try a few other things to help portray your story in a visually compelling way. And then you might go back to your screenplay and start lining your script or adding some lines to your script where maybe you hadn't considered before. And then we will be wrapping up this semester. So the end of this semester is going to be all of these pre-production things put together in a nice pre-production package. That includes your revised screenplay, which is a huge wad of points for this semester. That includes your broken down script, which is a significant wad of points for this semester. That includes your line script, which is a huge wad of points for this semester. And that's also going to include your shot list and your shooting schedule, which are also huge, ginormous wads of points for this semester. So this whole semester is really about putting together all of that planning and all of that organization to completion, so that when we are ready to shoot, when we are ready to move on to production, you're going to have a plan, you're going to be all ready to go. And you're going to be able to save time and do that process quickly and effectively, which, with circumstances being what they are, I think is going to be extra important for you. Being able to execute and film your scenes swiftly, I have a feeling is going to be very important for us, given the limitations that we have or that might pop back up at any given moment. So you're going to want to be able to shoot quickly and get through your scenes as quickly as possible when the time comes. Okay. Are there any questions? All right. If there are no questions, you've been a wonderful class today. Thank you for your time. I've enjoyed your company as per always. I'll be posting this later on my YouTube channel today if any of you feel the need to review, as well as the first part of our pre-production lesson, which I just barely posted last night, but have not emailed out to you yet. Have a wonderful week off. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you have an opportunity to spend some time with your family, with your loved ones. If you can, or if you can't, make sure you reach out to those people and let them know how you feel. I think everyone could use a little extra attention at this particular point of the year. So make sure that you let your families know that you care about them and give some thanks this week. And I will see you upon our return. Have a wonderful break.
Have a wonderful break, Mr. T, and you.
Bye, Mr. T.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks, Mr. Taylor.